caterhamracer.com Academy Championship is sponsored by Just Add Lightness, high-performance LED lights for the Caterham 7. And good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another broadcast here on Assetto Corsa and the caterhamracer.com Academy Championship. We've had the 420Rs. Now it's time for the slower of the two cars to go out, but it should be no less entertaining. And we're here at the beautiful Garden of England in Kent, well, the virtual version anyway. And this is the Brands Hatch circuit, the speed bowl that is the just shy of 1.2 mile Indy circuit, which always provides great tight racing. It is where the Caterham Motorsport Championships will be racing this weekend as they get set for another race meeting once more. And before then, a few drivers who are competing at this weekend's event will get a chance to have a little bit of extra warm-up before they head up to Kent for real-life testing and then getting the racing underway. Scott Woodwis and Chris Hutchison again in the commentary box once more. And as you can see, in virtual terms, the circuit is looking superb, as is also the weather. And qualifying is underway to try and decide who will sit on pole position for the first of our two 15-minute races here tonight. So, Chris, this is a circuit, of course, you're very familiar with. We saw some brilliant close racing for the most part in the 420Rs. I imagine, considering we've got a bigger field than usual for the Academy tonight, that it's going to be even more tense, particularly when we've got a few more cars than normally we would have on the circuit. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, Brands Hatch is such a unique experience and a unique challenge for the drivers because it's such a tight track, and it's really only is 4 or 5 corners really of note, and so they come at you one after the other and relentlessly. So you get dizzy by the end of it. And as he said, tonight we've got higher numbers on the grid. So we've actually got 22 racers, I believe, that will be trying to vie for victory tonight. So there'll be some names that aren't usually here on the A grid, but they are tonight, and certainly we're looking to highlight some of those throughout the evening. But yeah, it's all a momentum track. Again, if you get caught out by someone making a mistake in front of you, it can really cause a problem. If you get pushed off the line, it can take a long time for you to get back up to speed and carry all that speed. And given that everyone is within such a tight margin of each other, in pre-qualifying everyone was in that 1 second margin around this lap, it's going to be unbelievably tight. And let's hope we have less of the first lap issues that we saw in the 420s. But given that we've seen some incidents before in the Academy, I'm not going to hold out too much hope, and let's hope that the racing is good nonetheless.
Positive thinking, Chris. Positive thinking. If you believe it's going to be a fine first corner, it will be. I'm not sure about
it wasn't turn 1 there was problems, Scott. I think it was turn 2, 3 and 4.
Yeah, well, I know we're positive thinking. Not sure about the drivers in terms of if they're going to be out of that, but we'll have to wait and see. But we're keeping open mind anyway. Whilst qualifying is going on, quickly we'll get to that in a second. It's a good opportunity to briefly show you how the points are looking heading into this evening's 2 races. So Jaroslav Cherny, our Czech driver, who is part of the 2-man team that's been putting these cars together with the original mod, he leads the way with a nice round number of 200 points. Didn't win at Thruxton, but he has managed to maintain that championship lead by 12 points. But he has gotten smaller thanks to David Rowe, who picked up finally his first win at Thruxton in the series. He's 4 points ahead of Christian Zaruta. Then there's a bit of a scuffle going on for 4th place between Roy Rossetti, Blair McConaughey and James Murphy, with Richard Gallagher not too far behind as well. Then Matt Shepherd, Paul Fernhoff and Steve Arnell rounding out the top 10 of the 34 drivers that have competed in the championship so far, so looking pretty close. But the key thing is going to be, I guess, Chris, as we continue to watch qualifying, Cherny the key thing for him is going to be to try and maintain that 12-point lead by the end of the evening, either to extend it, or if he does have a bit of a rough night, to try and minimise the damage that his rivals might take if they start to score ahead of him.
Yeah, so Cherny's not been the fastest around Brands Hatch, so he wasn't in the 420Rs, and he's now topping the times, and that's the first time we've seen him at the top of the tables in this Academy car. But he does seem to be the master of this Academy car, and it'll be interesting to see whether he can carry that through, because I think he was affected in that turn 1 issues, or turn 1 and 2 issues last time out, which then meant that he had to recover for the whole rest of that session. But certainly he started off on a really good footing here with provisional pole position.
I suspect it's a phenomenon that begins with S and ends with and bagging, I think, in terms of practice. But even so, he is currently top of the times, 55.568, and as you'd expect, once again, very close on a short circuit like Brands Hatch. Cherny just coming across the line now to see if he can improve his time to 55.5. He currently sets, he has gone about a quarter of a second slower, so he's got some time to go as we've ticked over half distance in this qualifying session. So how it currently sits at the moment, the man on screen right here, Jaroslav Cherny, is currently fastest. We're looking at Steve Arnell, who's coming up to finish a lap, and he is doesn't move, but he stays in 8th position. And you look at how close it is towards the front, you can see that the first 10 cars are covered by just over 0.3 of a second. The entire field so far in the top in the 21 covered by just 1.1 seconds. So we thought the 420Rs was going to be frantic, particularly when they only had 18 cars. You add 3 or 4 more into the mix, Chris, and I suspect, as we just said, it's going to be pretty busy out there, and I think that's probably an understatement given these cars.
Yeah, the gaps are tiny, and so that means any mistake out of a corner, any slight hesitation on the throttle, bit of oversteer, anything like that will cost you time, and not just one place as you might expect on most tracks. That might cost you 10 places.
See that in the 420Rs last week. We saw one or two drivers making a bit of a mistake when they were in the pack, and it was just, as you say, one twitch or one small step up, and they didn't just lose one place, they lost 3 or 4 because the cars around them kept that momentum going, and they were the ones that benefited from it the most. Here's David Rowe, who is fresh in the academy ranks from winning his first race of the championship at Thruxton, and it was very much long awaited. It was almost a running, not joke, but a running thing that he would get into a leading position early on and then have some kind of a mishap, like a drive-through or a spin or an incident that wasn't his fault that seemed to compromise his run to get a strong result. But it must have been a lot of relief. That we know it was a relief because we spoke to him afterwards, that he was able to get that first win, and that also helped him to close that gap into 12 points on Cherney. One driver I'm going to watch out for tonight is the man currently in second place, Christian Zaruta. Hasn't won a race yet. He managed to pick up a pair of second places at Cadwell Park, but then since then he's had a little bit of an up and down time in this championship, but currently sat second fastest, half a tenth away from pole position. It's a circuit which in real life, at least in the 310Rs last year, that he took a race victory at, despite him being a guest driver. He managed to show everyone what he could do. I think potentially if he gets a good start on the flatter part of the front row, because usually it's a flatter piece of ground, so in real life it does lend yourself to a better getaway in that sense. If he can get a good start and get himself ahead of Cherney and then maybe build up a small gap, or at least try and fend him off for most of the race, he's, for me, a good bet for a race victory tonight to get his first one, because I think he's got enough racecraft in him to take the fight to Cherney and co if he can get a good getaway.
Yeah, he never got a chance to show what he was capable of. He's been fast on the server all week, and he was fast in the 420s, but just got caught by Cherney going into turn 1, and then had further incidents around Druids around this corner here that then dropped him right back through the field. So the fact that he fought his way back up to, I think, 4th place by the end, maybe 5th, it was really telling that he had all that speed, and as he goes very wide around that, that's not going to save you any time. But yeah, so he will be looking to show what he's capable of tonight, and just getting a few early laps in. As we saw, the front 2, when they got away, they were able to stay away in those previous races, so I'm sure he's looking forward to that.
Looking back to those 420R results, it was indeed a 4th place he managed to pick up, because you get 35 points for win, you get 33 for second, 32 for 3rd place, and 31 for 4th. And the amount of points next to his tally in the second Brands Hatch race in the 420R is 31. So, process of elimination, that's a 4th place finish for him, and he sits 3rd in those standings respectively, but about 23 points off the current leader in that standings, Steve McMaster. Speaking of Steve, he is currently sat in 5th position, just behind this man, Will Rossetti, who makes a welcome return, and he's had his kind of chances of racing in this year. He did put the post out on social media earlier this week, saying unfortunately that his plans for racing got a bit scuppered with some of the restrictions coming in and things happening around the UK, obviously with the developing situation we all still find ourselves in. But he is still allowing himself to enjoy some virtual action in his Gulf-coloured sort of light blue and orange Caterham, 4th quickest at the moment, and still less than a tenth away. The top 5 separated by less than a tenth. It's Cherney, then Zaruta, then Rowe, then Rossetti, and Steve McMaster. And Steve himself, of course, is a pretty decent runner all round. And if you look at where he is in the points, he had a bit of he wasn't present at Cadwell, he wasn't present at Thruxton. He was present at Thruxton. He wasn't. Sorry, yes, he was. Sorry, I'm getting numbers confused. So he was at Thruxton, but he wasn't at Cadwell Park. I was looking at the column with the zeros and think, why is there no results there? And I thought, that's the results for Brands Hatch, you idiot. So Steve McMaster then cutting on a lap here with about just under 3 minutes to go. That's not going to help things, because Tim Vanhey in the Just Add Lightness car, which we should mention, he's running a livery which is sporting the logo of a very generous supporter of the Academy Championship, Just Add Lightness. They do also support the 420R Championship, along with design, display structures and Avon tyres. We'll give them a quick mention. And it looks as though he's managed to try and adapt from that little mishap there, because obviously in real life, if you have a car stop on the inside at Druids Corner, you have to put a yellow flag out, push it behind the barriers and compromise your lap, and you have to slow down. Whereas, thankfully, in the virtual world, as Chris and I know and many other people know, it's simply a case if you have to stop, park it alongside or find a safe spot to slow down, hit the escape button, and you're back to pit lane. But we know it's not quite as simple as that when you get to the real world.
No, there's definitely more complications. Interesting, same things happening tonight that happened sort of in the 420s, which is everyone set a time early on a banker, and they are not able to match it. As we see McMaster there pushing just too hard into the gravel. Just quickly going back to Will Rossetti. Yep, he said he can't do this year, but he has been a specialist on our servers in the Academy car, so he doesn't tend to race the 420Rs. But as soon as he gets in the Academy, he puts it up there and he really gets involved. He had some bad luck early in the season, which is why he's a bit further down the running order, but he'll be looking to improve that. No movement on the leaderboard, Scott, which is again quite unusual. So maybe things are heating up out there and the tyres are just complaining a little bit.
Yeah, Blair, like you say, not any much higher than 9th place at the moment, and Tim Van Heekoor's rounding up the top 10. A couple of drivers who, looking down the order, who might be a little bit lower than I would have expected. I think one was probably Chris Skillicorn, who is out this weekend in the Academy group. He's battling for the championship with Tom Cockrell. There is Chris, 14th place, and of course his car is adorned with exactly the same livery that he runs at Academy, so the black car with the white, red and green striping. He's been pretty good. He's been battling back and forth at the front in the real world. He's been able to use some of the lessons he might learn tonight in the Academy car, possibly to put them to good use when he turns up for testing later on this week in a couple of days before this weekend. We should mention for the real world racing is that there are actually 2 Academy races for each group this weekend to try and make up for the fact that they can get their 6 signatures in, because it is a reduced season, obviously because of you know what. It means that they've had to adapt the calendar, and so what they've done is, I think for the first time, not counting the autumn trophy races that we normally have at the end of the season, I think it's one of the first times, if not the first time. I'm sure if Simon or Kirsty from Caterham are watching, I'm sure they're going to correct me on email or text at some point, either tonight or tomorrow, that the Academy has had 2 championship point scoring races on the same weekend. It's usually just the one, because to make sure they have it's like a one and done all in one day to get their running sorted out and they can go home or watch the racing and stay. But it's interesting that they're going to have 2 Academy races, which means that it's not just one race and then go. They've then got to prepare themselves again to do it all again for tomorrow, and it's a bit a case where, particularly if you get involved in an incident, it's more crucial for them to keep their cars clean and out of trouble, otherwise it could compromise them a day later. Yeah,
it's a whole new dynamic for the Academy. Like you say, that you have to balance off your race 1 against race 2, all those kind of things that you normally have to cater for in the higher categories, they've got to think about now. So yeah, it certainly makes a busier weekend as well. That's Chris, and also Rob Oldlands, who's on the grid as well. I think just doing a spin park into his parking space there. It's great. That is the end of qualification. We didn't really see any movement in the back end of that session.
We didn't, but looking at the times at the end of it, I saw that the majority of the field were covered by just over half a second. So this is going to be quite an interesting night of racing, particularly in this Academy field. So here's confirmation of the qualifying results. Jaroslav Cherny, championship leader, will start from pole position once again. He will have alongside him Christian Zaruta, 13 points, looking for his first win of the season. Thruxton winner David Rowe is on the second row alongside Will Rossetti. So all of the top 4 drivers, not in championship order, obviously, because second and third in championship points are wrong way round, if you want to call it that. All 4 of the top 4 in the championship are in the top 4 places on the grid, so that should be quite tasty. Steve McMaster, 420R points leader, is 5th alongside Superman himself, James Murphy. Welcome return for Guy Crawford. He's been on a bit of a break, a bit of a holiday, but he's back in action now in 7th. Alongside him is Steve Arnell. Then it's Blair McConaughey and Tim Van Heet, our Dutchman in the Just Add Lightness car, rounding out the top 10. Matt Shepherd starts 11th alongside Richard Gallagher. Then it's Alan Curtis and Chris Skillicorn. Jim Elam and Mark Rodman from Mark Sempers and Michael Coomer, 2 drivers who are usually in the B grid, but we've bumped them up to A grid for tonight. Then it's Philip Clark and Rob Oland, another one of our Academy real world drivers. And then at the back of the grid, last but certainly not least, we have got Tom McEwing. And we were hoping to have Andy Steele and Dan Mitchell. Andy Steele, not sure if we will get him. Dan Mitchell, it looks as though, unfortunately, he may not make the start. So 21 car set lap times in that qualifying session. We're expecting 21 cars on the grid. Key question then, Chris, pick a winner. Who's it going to be?
All you can say is whoever gets around the first 2 bends, is in with a chance at least. And certainly we normally say 4th place is the most ideal starting place. That would be Will Rossetti in that 4th place. But certainly 2nd place is also a good a good starting spot. And additionally, given that Christian is actually behind Cherney, maybe he won't get taken out by him in the first corner this time. Cherney's certainly got a good clear view ahead of him, hasn't he, as we head into this race. It's certainly the view that everyone wants. He didn't get a chance to shine it last time out, so maybe it's Cherney's evening tonight.
Essentially, again, I mentioned in qualifying, I don't know how much of an effect it is in the sim, but I know for a fact that on the outside of the front row of the grid, and the scenario or the example I use is TCR UK 2 years ago, when it was Dan Lloyd on pole position on the inside, where Jaroslav Cherney's red Caterham is, and Ollie Taylor's red Honda Civic, and it was on the outside of the front row where Christian Zaruta's Brawn GP Special livery car, I call it, was on the outside. And I remember looking at the grid walk, and I saw that outside front row was a flatter piece of tarmac than it was, because you look at the front row on the pole position, the tarmac is slightly sloped down towards the pit wall. It's sort of a bit of an angle. And it proved true that outside line you managed to get a better launch, because Ollie Taylor was a rocket off the line, and he beat Lloyd into turn one round the outside, and he led for most of the way before Lloyd eventually went on to win.
That's a very normal thing, Scott. And if you watch on this, even this start on the sim, you'll see everyone on the inside line next to the pit wall, they'll actually skew their cars, so they'll actually start sliding as they get going, and that's what costs you the time, because your car's going downhill or it's slipping away from you. So you watch that in this start.
Yeah, I'm expecting the likes of the first few rows to get away cleanly. Let's find out who does then. First race of the night for the caterhamracer.com Academy Championship is set to go. It is points leader Cherney on pole. It's Christian Zaruta alongside. Also watch for Rowe and Rossetti behind him. Red lights are on. Revs are going to rise, and race number one is underway. They do exactly start to move towards the pit wall on the inside line, but let's see who gets the sprint down towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. Into turn one, Cherney takes the wide approach to swing into the racing line. It's a scrap for fifth already between Steve McMaster and James Murphy, and they're tussling away with Will Rossetti, but up the hill, under the bridge and into Druids for the first time. And it's Cherney who leads. It's Zaruta in second, then it's Rowe in third position. Big skirmish for fourth going on. That's between Rossetti, McMaster, Murphy and Crawford in that order, followed by McConaughey, Arnell and Van Heat. Bit of tussling towards the bottom of the mid-pack, but everyone, fingers crossed, appears to have got through most of the first lap cleanly. Alan Curtis has dropped down a couple of spots, as has also Philip Clark, but into Surtees and then Clearways. The McLaren Clearways is right at the top of this apex here, and then you go all the way through onto the pit straight here, and now trying to get a better exit onto the pit straight is going to come Steve McMaster. Gets a nice run to put alongside Will Rossetti as they streak down the pit straight to end lap one. I did notice that the top three are all nose to tail as Zaruta takes a small look up the inside. Speaking of which, here goes Steve McMaster. Up the inside he goes. Rossetti runs wide. That's going to allow James Murphy the opportunity to slip up into fifth position. Looking for Guy Crawford as well on the orange and black car. He looks to get in the act as well. They all run wide at Druids, but somehow I think it looks as though that they've all got away cleanly, but top three are getting away, but everyone else for fourth. Quite a scramble.
Yeah, they seem to have learnt their lesson. Well done, everyone, for getting through turn one. And like you say, the front three are now gapping, so it's within their remit now to sort of settle in and just get themselves a gap before they really start pushing. And you can see that there's an all heck of a fight for this fifth place going on, a fourth and fifth place. Rossetti's just dropping back a little bit now. He did get beaten by McMaster into that turn one, and that's cost him that momentum that we say is so vital. You can see that he's now dropping down to sort of seventh place on the grid. So yeah, really suffering at the moment.
Yeah, that's the momentum, and he lost the momentum, and he's out of the shuffle because he's now getting shuffled down to the bottom of the top 10. He's been passed by Guy Crawford, as we just saw. Now he's under threat with McConaughey, and that's Jaroslav Cherney. Round goes Jaroslav Cherney, championship leader. Now then, we didn't see the beginning of that incident, but I guess the big question is, did he jump or was he pushed? Because he was quite close to both Rowe and Zaruta. The three of them were very close together, but the key thing development here then is for Chris, Jaroslav Cherney, points leader, down in ninth with lots of work to do. He's got plenty of time to try and get back up there because the leaders are all fairly close together in a pack, but drama for the Czech driver. He's got work to do now for ninth and already try and pick off positions as he makes up the inside, as we have a scrap for the leaders. Zaruta hits the front to try and get past David Rowe, but they're side by side on the pit straight.
Yeah, they've been working together, these two, throughout the week to try and set fastest laps, but at the moment they're not willing to give up and concede. We will not know until we hear in the interviews whether there was an incident there. If there was an incident, then the person who knocked him should have actually waited for him. But that doesn't. If that has happened, then we can have to assume at this point that there was clean. But these two are still side by side going into Druids. Christian's now definitely got the upper hand as we head down in towards Graham Hill, though.
the cars behind that might benefit. There's a 4-car, well, I say it's a 4-car train. One car that's dropped back slightly is Will Rossetti as Saruta runs wide on the exit, gets a little slide on the apex of Graham Hill Bend, and they're going to bang wheels on the sprint towards Surtees. Up the inside into the left-hander goes David Rowe, and he slots in before they turn right for McLaren. But look behind them, you've now got this trio of cars sailing up onto their tail, led by Superman himself, James Murphy, living up to his nickname as he comes onto the Jack Brabham straight in 3rd position, with Steve McMaster in 4th, and Guy Crawford, who set the fastest lap of the race last time by, keeping with the lead group. I know we always make a thing of saying that he's doing such a great job of moving up the pack, but goodness me, staying with the leaders, he really is doing a fantastic job, and keeping with some drivers who regularly race these cars in real life. But for someone who just owns a Caterham, I don't say that disingenuously, he's holding on as a switch for the lead again as Saruta makes a big dive into Druids. And they're all being very sensible for the moment, just leaves him room, just gives it a little bit of a squeeze, and Rowe wants to try and get back up the inside initially, but he figures out, Chris, that the discretion's the better part of valor. He's not going to go stupid up the inside. He'll sit back for a second, but try and getting that possibly on the run towards Paddock Hill Bend.
Yeah, but every time they go side by side, every time they battle, the following pack are getting closer and closer. They could settle in and decide to work with each other for a bit, but it doesn't look like they're interested in doing that at all, as we see a little love tap there. Actually gives Christian a nice little boost down that straight there. But yeah, with Murphy coming up behind with McMaster actually challenging him now, we saw that Murphy was so good at not making a mistake, and he's closing in that gap, and if he gets involved, he could well pull out ahead.
He really could. So it's kind of trying to toss up the balance here between, do these two carry on battling, but also at the same time the 3 cars behind continue to battle as Guy Crawford makes the move up the inside.
Ooh.
And that was a bit sideways there, and round goes Zarusi. He's been tabbed by Murphy. Guy Crawford's in the mix as well, and through all of it up the inside, incredibly. And more contact there. Zarusi gets sucker punched by somebody else. I think it might be Steve Arnell, I think, and he gets another little love tap for good measure as well. It was Steve Arnell as he gets back onto the road. But through all of it, Guy Crawford has survived. But out of all of that, the man that's hit the jackpot is Steve McMaster, because he's now going round the outside, trying to hold on to a lead. He gets a little sideways as he goes into combat with David Rowe. And just like that, in the blink of an eye, Chris, the complexion of the race has changed completely. It was a battle for the lead between Saruta and Rowe. Now Rowe's still in there, but he's got a new nemesis in Steve McMaster as the race gets blown wide open once more.
I made the mistake of actually looking over left to the chat window, just seeing that Andy Steele's got to put the kids to bed, and just as I look back, the whole race had changed. So I shall not make that mistake again. We see McMaster regularly lock up into Druids. It's definitely cost him time on the way in. And yeah, just something he probably needs to get under control if he wants to set those ultimate lap times. But quite frankly, right now he's in 2nd place, hassling for the lead. So what do I know?
You are a Caterham champion, so you know quite a lot. But in many cases, it's a fascinating battle so far at the front. I did notice in the background, also in the corner of my eye, and also on my timing bars, I did notice that Jaroslav Cherny was up as high as 4th. But he was down to 6th now. It looks like he's been a bit of a skirmish with Blair McConaughey and the recovering James Murphy. Although, stop the press for a second. Look at Guy Crawford. He was in the mix in 3rd place. We go, there he is, look in the tow. He's inside that magical half a second gap we talk about in a set of course to beat into with these cars, where we always say that to get the tow, you have to be within half a second to really start to feel the effect. But Guy Crawford from 3rd position, on the podium here at the moment, if he plays his cards right, dare I say it, and I'll whisper it quietly, he might have been contention for the win here, He's some really nice, clean, smooth lines that he's able to take, whereas the 2 in front are obviously battling and defending and attacking each other. But you can see that Guy's just absolutely taking the racing line. The momentum is clean, and so he is catching up because of that. And you can see why we talk about the momentum track as he closes that gap in. And in the next couple of laps, he's going to be in a position to actually mix it with these 2. Something's happened to Jaroslav Cherny. He's dropping down the timing order like a stone because he's now to 15th position. So something's happened to the championship leader once again, going for a spin. Someone else has gone off in the background as well. And Cherny's managed to get back going again, but he's now in a fight with what looks to be, that's Mark Sempers with Richard Gallagher in there as well. So Cherny down to 17th now and losing more and more places. So talk about a bit of an off night for the points contenders. Rossetti at the moment is down in 6th position right now, trying to recover as Richard Zaruta in 7th. Cherny's down in 17th. The biggest benefactor from all of this in terms of championship contenders, arguably, is David Rowe, who leads, but also look at Blair McConaughey up there in 4th position. He's currently 5th in points, 2 behind Will Rossetti as well. He's ahead of him on track 2 and also ahead of other couple of other championship points contenders at the same time. So some key drivers having some misfortunes in the first race here, but for others it's pretty much coming up to trumps, and they're almost like they're hitting the jackpot in terms of picking up key points against their main rivals.
I think that Cherney might want to forget Brands Hatch because it hasn't treated him well in the 420s, and now in the academy he's suffered. We haven't seen what's been going on, but certainly he's been a little bit of a 10-pin bowling. He's been the pins at the end of the aisle, hasn't he? So he's getting pinged left, right and centre. But certainly there's still 6 minutes to go. So we've sometimes these races, 15 minutes feels like a long time. Other times it feels like it's nothing, but there's still 6 minutes to go. So there's still plenty of time for him to recover, and we've seen how good he is at recovering through the field.
Yeah, we've seen these drivers come up pretty quickly to make up positions. He's already back up to 16th, getting past Richard Gallagher. Also someone who's dropped down appears to be Alan Curtis, so he's down to 19th place. There's a bit more position swapping there with Tom McEwen getting past Mark Sempus, just watching the positions flick around on the timing tower. We're looking at Will Rossetti here, who's just trying to fend off a recovering Christian Zaruta, trying to limit some of the damage from his earlier spin. He comes out through clearways up through McLaren, up at the top of the apex here, and if he can get a nice run through the inside of the corner here, which he does try to do, gets on the power and starts to squeeze alongside Rossetti. He does give him the room and just get some punch off that corner as Christian Zaruta with great momentum.
Rossetti defended up the inside there, going into McLaren and into clearways, so that's why he was slower onto the throttle, because Christian took the wider line, able to get the power earlier, and it's just a nice easy slingshot down the inside then.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. And I think what's also a comfort as well for Zaruta is he's trying to make up as many positions as he can now with the time he's got left. He's got just about 5 minutes on the dot as we go to the timer now on my screen, 5 to go. It's a third of the race left. And this is still our top three. Rowe from McMaster and then Guy Crawford. He's doing, I have to admit, a fantastic job to keep up with these two. Whatever he did on the break, or whatever he did to relax and sort of take a couple of weeks off, it seems to have worked no wonders, because he's now in the mix there in third place. And it's key also the fact that it's an age-old statement, but he's kept a cool head whilst just about everyone around him has lost theirs, and he's benefiting the most. He came into the evening, where was he in points if I look on the Academy Championship? He was 14th in points, and he's missed the meeting at Thruxton, so this will certainly help him shoot up into the top 20 with some really healthy points if he stays where he is.
Yeah, the championship is going to be wide open. I mean, the drop scores are now going to start becoming, vital for people. So we will start tracking those from now on. But yeah, there's battles all the way back through the field. Here you can see Jim Earlham fighting with Michael Coomer, and it doesn't matter where you go in the field, there are battles, and you can see it out in front. We've got this pack of 3 drivers, and it's very much like the racing is going to be next weekend. If things are still open and you get a chance, why not head over to Brands Hatch and watch these guys do it for real. You'll see some names, and you'll see some of these liveries out on show as well.
Yeah, just remember, if you are heading to obviously take all the precautions that are required and keep as much social distancing as possible as you can. Obviously, because the quicker we get all through this, the quicker we can get back to some kind of normality once again, get out the other side for next season. Meanwhile, back towards the front here, this is Tim Vanhey, still in this mix here for 6th position. Christian Zaruta hasn't been able to escape Will Rossetti, who's still on his tail on the run up towards Druids. There's the scrap just ahead for 4th between Blair McConaughey and James Murphy. But Tim Vanhey in the Just Add Lightness sponsored car, of course, who are the main sponsor of this Academy Championship, and doing a fine job at that. He's keeping in touch with the 2 cars in front as they head out of Graham Hill Bend and onto the Surtees Straight, so Cooper Straight towards Surtees. And Rossetti is not done here with Christian Zaruta. He was just moving around to try and make a pass happen there, but at the moment it looks as though, Chris, that Christian is using all his defensive experience here to keep him at bay, but Rossetti seems to have found some pace to get back on his tail. He hasn't just allowed Christian to get away here. He's still got a bit more pace left in the tank with just over 2.5 minutes to go.
It almost looked like Christian was just starting to be able to take his normal racing line rather than have to defend, so he was just on the verge of doing that breakaway. As we see, Vanhey taking a lot of speed into Paddock Hill. Can he hold it? No, he can't. He's drifted off wide. But yeah, so we almost saw Christian take his normal line, and that's what we will see now. So he looks like he's broken that toe now with Vanhey diving up the inside of Rossetti there, upsetting his rhythm.
He dismissed that. Being the racing driver that you are, you automatically sense that Tim Vanhey, whilst you admired the pass going up the inside, was going way too quick into Paddock Hill Bend and thought, is he going to hold on to it? Oh, no, he's in the gravel. So he just carried on. So good attempt, A for effort, but couldn't quite make that one stick.
I'm surprised he actually managed to stop it, to be honest, Scott.
But I think, as you probably well know, you can do quite a lot of things in these Caterhams, and they can surprise you at times, good and bad. So, as they come onto the pit straight now with a minute and 45 to go, this is now the scrap for second because David Rowe's managed to escape the clutches of Steve McMaster here to 1.1 seconds. But now McMaster has now a new adversary to contend with, and it is Guy Crawford. He's going for it. Has a look on the apex, just closes up onto the rear of McMaster's car, and he's looking feisty here. So if he plays his cards right and just finds an opportunity here with, I think, about 2 laps to go here, roughly, maybe last lap next time, possibly, I don't know, it could be pretty close. We'll have to wait and see. But if he plays this one right and possibly looks for the right opportunity and stays as close as he is, there's no real possibility to rule out the chance that Guy Crawford could be looking at second here, but at the same time he might be possibly conserving for third, thinking it's my best result ever to date. So it might well be the choice for him to just sit there and hold on. So Rowe goes across the line then. It's 53 seconds to go.
Sorry, he makes a lot of his positions by actually just being consistent and staying on track. So we're yet to see him make that many positions just actually by forcing out the inside. You know, that's one thing about being consistent. Sorry for cutting over.
That's fine, all good. So I think we're actually on the last lap. I was confusing the pace of the 420R cars with the academies because the fast lap is about a 55-second lap. And we crossed the line with about 53 seconds to go. So it looks as though this is going to be the final tour in this first race in the caterhamracer.com Academy Championship tonight at Brands Hatch. And has it ever produced a race full of drama? Championship contenders all hitting strife, but at one point it looked as though possibly this man was going to hit strife. But talk about race wins coming like buses. You wait for one to come along, and then 2 will come along at once, because out of Clark Curve onto the pit straight, he won at Thruxton. He's now going to win at Brands Hatch in extraordinary circumstances. He holds on and keeps his nose clean. It is victory number 2 for David Rowe, and he will almost certainly take the championship lead, or at least get close to it as he heads into the second race. Steve McMaster in second, an excellent personal best, and his first podium for Guy Crawford. Fantastic drive indeed. 4th for James Murphy, 5th for Blair McConaughey, 6th for Christian Zaruta, who recovers after his earlier spin whilst battling for the lead. It is 7th for Rossetti, 8th for Tim Van Heat, 9th for Chris Skithercorn, and 10th for Steve Arnell. Then it's Mark Rodman in 11th place, Jaroslav Cherny, pole sitter and points leader coming into the weekend. Finishes 12th after going as low as 17th at one point, as that was lost him a ton of points that will bring everyone else that little bit closer. 13th place for Matt Shepherd, 14th for Richard Gallagher, and it's Curtis, Coomber, McEwing and Earlham with Rob Oldland, and then Philip Clark coming across the line, and we lost by the looks of it Mark Sempers, unfortunately. So here's again confirmation of the results, and it was a win by 1.2 seconds, the second of the season for David Rowe from Steve McMaster in second place. And what a drive from Guy Crawford, keeping his nose clean and proving that you don't have to get too aggressive to get good results. Third for him, and that should be a result he will be delighted with. 4th place for James Murphy, 5th place for Blair McConaughey, 6th for Christian Zaruta, 7th for Will Rossetti, Tim Van Heat 8th, Chris Skithercorn 9th, and Steve Arnell 10th. I was noticing in the chat box there that Jaroslav Cherny is apologising to Will Rossetti for something, so you think that was potentially some contact between the two, which maybe eventually resulted in Cherny dropping down as low as he did in that second half of the race?
That's a chat from practice or qualification rather than that. Yeah.
Forgive me, I was looking at that and it popped up, so there you go. Anyway, back to 11th place then. We've gone through the top 10 with Skithercorn 9th and IL 10th. Then it's Mark Rodman who finishes 11th, Cherny who's 12th, then Matt Shepherd 13th from Richard Gallagher and Alan Curtis. Michael Coomer finishes 16th from Tom McEwing, and then Jim Earlham, Rob Oldland and Philip Clark. And the one car we didn't see take the flag was Mark Sempers, and then Andy Steele, who's been tending to his family in the meantime. And of course we don't have Daniel Mitchell on the grid either as well. So where do you start for that first race, Chris? That was pretty much an eventful race to start things off, and usually an eventful race is a good one to get the blood flowing for race 2, but that was a race where it could potentially have some connotations for the championship, major ones at least. And I think one or two of the drivers here might be classing that as well as their drop round if they don't have worse runs coming up. Yeah,
there's definitely some drops going on, but there's also some absolute clings. So yeah, David Rowe taking that win there with the fastest lap as well, 55.5. So right on qualifying pace, which is pretty incredible in for the closeness of that. We saw Christian Zaruta drop down, but he has got back up to at least 6th place, and that's higher than he started the second race last week. So maybe he's got a chance to get back into that lead battle again now. Some good battling all round, and like I say, battles all the way down the field, all the way down to the back. We saw that as they were coming over the line, things are close and say competitive as ever.
I'll look into maybe any of the chat here from some of the drivers, just in case on Discord. I can't see anyone chatting just yet because there is a bit of it's kind of like touring cars. It used to be with the 10-minute sort of gap between races. Only this one's a bit more of a couple of minutes rather than 10. So not much time to turn things around. And of course, everyone gets, not that there's damage, but they get a fresh car for the second race. So remember, of course, the grid is set by the results of race 1, which means that where you finish in race 1 is where you start in race 2. That's going to mean that David Rowe picks up pole position for race number 2, alongside him Steve McMaster. Then we've got Guy Crawford. I keep calling him Gavin for some reason. Forgive me, Guy. Guy Crawford in third place, followed by James Murphy. And then, of course, got in the mix there Blair McConaughey and Christian Zaruta. So out of those that hit strife, Christian Zaruta is arguably the best placed out of them. He has got Will Rossetti just behind him in 7th place, or around him anyway, so a couple of places back. So, whereas Jaroslav Cherny is going to start back in 12th place, so he's got lots of work to do. But we have seen it before, particularly from Jaroslav, if he has started down the pack in the second race, it hasn't taken him long to pick his way back through to get up the order, and he had to do that in the second race at Brands Hatch in the 420Rs last week. So, I suspect with him being more comfortable with the Academy car, if, and I say if, that's the big point in this statement, if he can keep out of trouble the first couple of laps, there's a good chance he might start to pick his way through and get himself quite deep into the top 10 by the time we get the first couple of laps out of the way. You think?
It's just when you're looking at the cars in front of him, though, they're not slow at all. You know, they are rapid drivers. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of cars in front of him, and they are absolutely on the pace. So it's hard to say whether he can make it back through. I would say it's a high it would be low odds that he's going to make it back to the front of this grid. I think they're going to break away and clear off into the distance again.
Christian Zaruta again, 6th on the grid. He was contending for the lead, so we know he's got the pace to get out there and win the race. Starting up in 6th, he's on the flatter part of the circuit. Chances of him to get the order? I guess we'll discuss that in a second, because we've got the lines about to come up then. I guess we'll find out if he can make progress. So, David Rowe, he's going to try and hopefully become one of the second double winner of the third double winner of the season. We've had Cherny, we've had Zaruta. Can it be David Rowe this time? Let's find it out. We're racing for the second time here tonight in the caterhamracer.com Academy, and up towards turn 1 at Paddock Hill Bend they go, and it's Rowe who will take the lead and take the whole shot into Paddock Hill Bend. It's second for McMaster, third for James Murphy. He goes round the outside of Guy Crawford, and I spoke too soon. Away they go, exit stage left, and they're off into the barriers. That's then down towards the back of the field. So Christian Zaruta gets a free pass into what is now 4th place. Blair McConaughey's up to 3rd, and Jaroslav Cherny, would you believe it, is up to 6th position already. He's 3 abreast in the mid-pack now, trying to contend with, I spoke too soon again. He's now got a bit of a bump there from somebody, and he's off once more. So I really did speak too soon, because that is now, I think, Chris Skillicorn off into the barriers, and he is now down to the tail of the field. James Murphy's also, I think, had an issue. He's down to 18th. Well, of course, yeah, he spun with Guy Crawford, of course he did. So he's down the order. So we were hoping for a less than frantic first lap. We haven't quite got that. But now it's Rowe who leads the way of McMaster of 2nd place. And then for 3rd place, take your pick, Chris, because it looks like everyone wants to be 3rd, and it's all not working out for anyone.
At the moment, Sharuta's got the outside line, but McConaughey on the inside. Can he make it stick around the outside? It's really dusty, and you usually lose momentum, and he's at risk of Rossetti also making a move up here. Blair's still on the inside of Druids, but he's just got the overlap. He's just able to hold him. Whilst there were some brilliant starts there, they haven't all come to fruition, but I would say 6th to 3rd place here for Sharuta is exactly how he wanted to start it. As he goes off wide, he's actually caught the grass, and that's all by himself. He's done that, and now he's going to have to do it all again.
Should we just stop talking about championship contenders, because they all seem to go off when we start talking? It's the classic commentator's curse, because what it's now left us is Rossetti up to 3rd place, McConaughey 4th, and Tim Vanhey trying to get in the mix. And now there's a change on for 3rd, because up the inside looks McConaughey trying to elbow Rossetti out wide, which he does. And look at that, we talked about the momentum, but you look at Tim Vanhey, he's got the momentum, the 2 of them scrapping in front, and he just thinks, well, just get out of the way, boys, I'll take 3rd all day if you don't mind. He's going to slip up the inside into Paddock Hill Bend. He's wheel to wheel with Blair McConaughey. McConaughey says, after you, Tim, and up into it he goes. Well, Rossetti thinks, I'm not finished with you yet on that one. Blair, up the inside I go. And it's side by side again into Druids. Vanhey leaves the door open, sees McConaughey coming, lets him through. Little bump of wheels there on the exit, I think, and now he's got Rossetti to deal with. Steve Arnell's up to 6th meanwhile, 7th place for Matt Shepherd, and it's now Mark Rodman in 8th, Mike Cooper 9th, and Alan Curtis 10th. I don't think this disingenuously, Chris, but I don't think even they expected to be up in the top 10, given how strong the field is. But as it says caterhamracer.com racing, we've seen anything can happen, it usually does. and the championship contenders hitting strife has helped a few drivers get up there to possibly get what could be their best results, although if they keep on bump drafting like that through clearways, maybe not.
Yeah, no, absolutely good for them. Get up there, get stuck in, and you know, stand your ground when people challenge you. Whether people can fight back through again, that's hard to say. But at the moment, I can almost hear the chuckling from David Rowe and Steve McMaster from here. You know, they are out and free of everyone out front there, while everyone else is contending for the final podium position.
Behind this battle over Vanhi and Rossetti, it's a fantastic 3-4-way scrap we've got going on behind them. We've got Rossetti now under threat from Steve Arnell. Richard Gallagher's in there in the blue car. Matt Shepherd and his typical yellow machine is in there as well in that group. Just behind these two we're looking at here for third and fourth. And that four-car scrap, there it is. Rossetti now under threat from one side from Steve Arnell, the other side from Richard Gallagher. He doesn't know where to go here. Oh, don't try three abreast into Surtees, boys, but they're going to do over it anyway.
Wow.
Arnell goes up into what is now fifth position. Rossetti fending off Gallagher, who goes round the outside and doesn't give a damn for sixth position. He is going to go for it, gets the better run off the corner, and Rossetti's he seems to be the one that keeps losing momentum. He keeps being shuffled out wide and putting on the wrong line. It seems to be putting it in the wrong position he needs to be. We need to go back for third. Well, I say go back for third because they're side by side between McConaughey and Vanhi. It's three abreast again into Paddock Hill Bend. Gallagher with the cut back of the century, trying to get up the inside once more. Still three abreast up towards Druids. Gallagher on the inside line. They touch again on the run towards it. They're going to make contact, and round goes Gallagher. Oh, and it had to be the one who collected him. It had to be Jaroslav Cherny, didn't it, Chris? Of all the bad luck he's had, he had to be the one that collected the car that spun at Druids. He's just not having a good night tonight, is he?
He absolutely not. He has not got the run of luck at all, and we just saw that clash of wheels. As again, you see it in, if you've ever been indoor karting, as soon as you make contact with wheels, it's like a magnet comes between the two cars and sticks you. Do you see Blair McConaughey drop it out wide? And now Vanhi is the latest inheritor of this third place. It seems to be a cursed position.
Well, we would say that, but he has managed to pull a small gap here, and he is outside that magical half a second at the moment from the cars behind. McConaughey has managed to recover himself back up to speed, but he's now under big pressure from Will Rossetti. And then we've got Matt Shepherd, who seems to have benefited from all of that skirmish at Druids a lap ago. He's now up to 7th place behind Steve Arnell. Here is that scrap for fourth going on. The recovering Glenn McConaughey now has Rossetti to his outside, who just tries to squeeze him onto the inside at Druids. Rossetti runs wide onto the grass, but he now has the inside line for Graham Hill Bend. Another little bump of wheels. McConaughey doesn't want to give up the inside line, and here comes Matt Shepherd and Steve Arnell. Arnell thinks, right, I'll go one side, you go the other side, Matt. Pincer movement down towards Surtees, and it's almost working. Oh, didn't work that time. Arnell gets a thump from McConaughey. Get out of it, Steve. I think I'll keep this place. I'm fed up of losing positions. And now as he goes into clearways, they're all stacking up behind, because you can see there, as now we've got Shepherd looking up the inside of Steve Arnell. Michael Coomber in the yellow, red and blue car is in there, and he's under threat from the recovering Richard Gallagher. So no one's safe in these top 10 positions. They all want fourth downwards, but only one person can have each position. But they're all fighting so hard, but they're losing time for the cars around them. And Jaroslav Cherny's getting back into the mix here in 10th. He's looking at all of this thinking, right, it's either his worst nightmare, or he's licking his lips thinking, right, all for the picking here, one by one, keep out of trouble. Let's see if we can pick some more points up. 3 abreast to Druids is dodgy enough. Just thinking about it, not actually doing it. This is pretty frantic stuff, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say, really. I mean, normally discretion is the better part of valour, isn't it? As in, sometimes it's better to back out of these moves, but that none of them seem willing to back down, as we see, like, Richard Gallagher just losing at the inside there. So they are putting it 4 wide into a corner and somehow just about surviving the ensuing chaos. But yeah, you know, single file will feel like quite a relaxed atmosphere in a minute.
Well, they're starting to get in single file for a split second, but then as they go down towards Paddock Hill Bend, they all look for racing room, and Cherny's right in the thick of it. He's almost boxed in here with Coomer behind him, Gallagher to his outside, Arnell in front of him. He's got nowhere to go as Gallagher thinks tally-ho round the outside. Oh, one car goes shooting off into the gravel. Now, that was Alan Curtis, unfortunately. He's now exited off for a bit of a day at the beach. Meanwhile, Jaroslav Cherny says, see you later, boys, up the inside of everyone, and he's now found himself back into 7th place. We should look at the other championship contenders, or regular frontrunners that have hit some strife, as we see Cherny now again going wheel to wheel with Steve Arnell. Is that wise after all his luck tonight? Anyway, we've got Christian Zaruta battling over 10th. He's just taken 10th from Mark Rodman. In fact, there he is. He's just stuck. In fact, he's not too far away from Stephen Cherny, actually. He is in that group now. He's got Guy Crawford also, who's recovering after his contact. As Now, Matt Shepherd's the last his person to get a shove at clear ways to be pushed wide. He's now boxed in between Gallagher and Crawford, and Zaruta is only two cars. Has only got one car between them. I meant to say, between himself and Jaroslav Cherny, that being Steve Arnell, and he's on the comeback trail. But we talk about front runners. There's Matt Shepherd, who's now caught up to the back of Blair McConaughey. Rossetti's fourth. Van Heer's 6 seconds behind second place Steve McMaster. But out in front, as you mentioned earlier on, I think there is a wry smile on the face of David Rowe, who here he is in the lead, and he must be thinking this is absolutely come up trumps all the bad luck he's had earlier on in the seasons. I don't want to curse it, but also all the bad luck he's had. He's on a run of form now where he could be looking at his third win in a row. He's still got 6.5 minutes to go to get it done, so it's by no means certain. And McMaster is only 1.1 seconds away, but if he keeps it cool, he's got a very good chance of leaving here tonight with a very firm championship lead heading to Donington in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah,
that margin looks good to me, and McMaster doesn't look like he's able to fully impact. He's the only one able to keep up, but that gap is slowly extending. So I think David Rowe, as long as he can keep it together, like we saw James Murphy do last week, he might be on for a double. I don't want to, I've said it now, haven't I? So it's too late. But yeah, as we see sort of further action, we got Christian now overtaken Steve Arnell, so there's no cars now between him and Cherny as they both make their way back up through the order.
This will be interesting, won't it, when these two get together? And they've still got just under 6 minutes to do it, so these two are going to start making some more progress. Now, Cherny's got 1.7 seconds to make up on Shepherd in front, and it all depends on if Shepherd gets held up by Blair McConaughey in front of him, as we see just further back James Murphy. Unfortunately, he can't really put in the same Superman antics that he has before in real life to get back up the order. Stuck in 15th place, staring at the rear of the blue, yellow and red car of Mike Coomber, who in turn is now going around the outside of Richard Gallagher, as are we, or trying to at least, because Gallagher's got the small toe from Coomber. Ahead of them there's a side-by-side scrap between, looks like that is, it's Mark Rodman he's going side-by-side with, not Richard Gallagher. Gallagher's up a few more spots. He's down in 16th. Possibly he was the one that went off the road, because I thought it was possibly...
Yeah, he spun earlier on into the inside of Graham Hill, yeah.
Oh yeah, so he was the one that had the off earlier on. So, Steve Arnell defending from Guy Crawford over 9th position, and Crawford's not going to give it up just yet. He goes back up the inside of Steve Arnell and says, excuse me, that was my 9th place, back you go to 10th, and he's going to try and hold on the inside line towards Surtees, slots in.
So we've got both the recovery chains, so Guy and we saw Guy and Murphy obviously have that incident lap 1, and then we obviously saw Cherny and Sharuta also having, so they're both recovering through, but Cherny and Sharuta so far have just got that little bit of gap. Guy now back into 9th, so he is joining that recovery train.
Yeah, he's not too far away from the two cars in front. We should mention that looking at the gaps, last time by, it looked as though Zaruta was a fraction quicker than, by about 100th or so not that much, and they're very evenly matched at this point in the race in terms of pace. Here's Rob Oldland, one of our 2020 Academy drivers, who is going to be out in action this weekend for 2 races at Brands Hatch. Of course, we said earlier on, for those that missed it, that the Real Life Academy, they usually only get 1 race and everything done on 1 day, which is qualifying and a race, but they're going to get 2 races this weekend due to the fact that with the reduced season, the reduced time to get the fit the season in, that they have to run 2 races here to ensure that each driver gets their 6 signatures to move up into a national licence from Interclub. Of course, everyone started the season in 2020 in the Academy as a bona fide rookie driver with no racing experience whatsoever. Plenty of racing experience is before this man, Matt Shepherd, who is on the tail of Blair McConaughey. But what's crucial here is, if you look behind them, Chris, look who are creeping up onto his tail. Both Jaroslav Cherny, and also coming with him, who's just set a personal best, is Christian Zaruta, and he's getting within that half a second very imminently, I would imagine. So these 4 are going to start contesting the final top 5 place. McConaughey has it, but I think, as you can see, Chris, everyone else behind him wants it.
Yeah, you can bet that the Jaws music is playing in Matt Shepherd's ears right now as he sees those 2 come up behind, and he just gave Blair a little bit of a hurry-up shove through the middle of Druids there to try and make him move on forward, but now Cherny is right on the tail of Shepherd and looks like he's got his next victim lined up.
I think Shepherd's thinking, I need a bigger engine rather than a bigger boat, and whether it's going to help or not, we'll have to wait and see, because they all run the same 1.6 litre engine. He's thinking, I need a Duratec out of a 420R trying to hold off Cherny, but I'm not sure it's going to work, because he is in that magical half a second. He's right in the sweet spot in the slipstream. He's going to pull to the outside. He might get a small toe inadvertently from McConaughey, because he's only half a second away from him, and it appears to be working down the outside into Paddock. Shepherd squeezes him to the outside line, but he knows that Cherny will get the cut back if he can hold on, but he stays round the outside, takes the high wide wide and handsome line on the run up towards Druids. If we can outbrake him into the right-hander at the hairpin, which he can, goodness me, I'll take my hypothetical hat off, Jaroslav Cherny. That was a superb move. You can't normally pass around the outside at Paddock Hill Bend unless you've got guts. Not he's got guts, but plenty of racecraft. That was a superb move, and now it's Christian Zaruta's turn to try and match that if he can.
It's a difficult move in real life. It's even more difficult in the sim racing. Actually, it's even dirtier out there, and you really do lose momentum. Matt actually clipped the inside curb as we see Zaruta do the dive up the inside of Surtees, and that's a great move there. Actually got it done. Or McLaren, and now into the Clark curve on the way out. So he's also making great progress through, but I think Matt has probably got the momentum. But yeah, difficult around the outside in real life, even more in the sim. So great tip of the hat to Cherny for doing that.
The thing is now, as we keep watching these four, is that Zaruta has to get back in that half a second, whilst also trying to defend from Matt Shepherd, who's trying it himself. He's thought, right, if I had it done to me, I'm quite actually trying it myself, and he can't quite make it happen. As Cherny had a small look up the inside into McConaughey that resulted in a big lock up into Druid, so didn't quite pull that one off. He's now only got a minute and 16 to go. So I think we've got probably that time that we're going to complete for David Rowe, plus maybe one more, depending on where he is on the road. I think he's probably just coming to the pit straight now, I think. So he will have, I think, 2 more laps to go. Yep. As we see Cherny now looking at the inside.
Covered off there. His intent is clear, though. He really wants this place. He's hungry for it, and he's really he's put it out the inside, but he hasn't quite got the momentum, but he has got the toe. So if he's got that slight overlap, he will be ahead going into paddock.
Yeah, side by side, and look at this. McConaughey's trying everything he can to try and squeeze him up against the pit wall. It's almost worked, but Cherny forces the issue up the inside into paddock. And again, with another small bump of wheels, through goes Cherny into the top 5. But look at the momentum that Christian Zaruta's carried through Paddock Hill Bend, and he's straight up the inside into 6th position. Talk about carrying the speed. That was sensational. He gets a small bump as he goes, back you go, Chris. As he goes back up the inside. Zaruta's on the grass, but he sticks up the inside line because he knows he has to try and get past McConaughey as quick as he can because time is running out, and Cherny will start to run up the road and increase that gap to over half a second, which I think he already has. He's going to get a good run through the second half here. Also trying to get up the inside now is Shepherd. He squeezes past McConaughey. Meanwhile, across the line goes David Rowe with 2 seconds to go. So one more lap. He just about squeezed it in this time to get another lap in. But you have to say, we haven't talked about him much, but I guess in a nice way for good reason. We won't talk about him now because it's still going on for what is 7th position. Blair McConaughey now has it, but the recovering Guy Crawford is going to make it possibly 3 abreast into Paddock Hill Bend. Look through your fingers, everybody. That's going to be pretty difficult. Around goes Guy Crawford, and he's taken. I thought he'd taken either Shepherd or McConaughey with him, but thankfully he hadn't. He's off the road, so sadly Guy Crawford will finish outside the top 10. But meanwhile, back at the front, we haven't talked about him very much, but I guess in a nice way, with good reason, because he hasn't had anything happen to him until then. So we talked about how he's had such a run of bad luck in recent times in both the Academy and the 420R in the first and second season. Looks like it's all coming up David Rowe at the moment, because after the win at Thruxton, he's going to take a double here at Brands Hatch, and I'm certain a commanding championship lead to Donington. It's 2 out of 2 for David Rowe at Brands Hatch as he weaves across the line in delight. It is 2nd place for Steve McMaster. Tim Vanhey with a strong 3rd place on his own. 4th goes to Will Rossetti. A recovering 5th after his early mistake puts him into 5th for Jaroslav Cherny, 6th for Christian Zaruta, and after that epic battle towards the bottom of the top 10, it's Blair McConaughey who picks up 7th from Matt Shepherd, and recovering James Murphy in 9th, and it's Steve Marnell in 10th, it's Gavin Crawford in 11th, Michael Coomber in 12th, but was Richard Gallagher and Mark Robin were side by side for 13th place there, Richard winning that battle. Rob Oldland across the line in 15th from Earlham and Skillicorn, who he hit strife in the first lap after he made contact with Zaruta. And then we had McEwing and Curtis and Philip Clark across the line. I think we've possibly got one more car to go. If not, that's it, I think. That's the last car across. So, confirmation of the result then. I'm pretty certain you're looking at the new championship leader because it's David Rowe with 2 victories and fairly commanding for the most part in terms of the gap he had of being outside the slipstream. He wins by 2 seconds from Steve McMaster in 2nd place, and Tim Vanhey getting through all the chaos in the early laps to hold on to a 3rd, in which he was pretty much in mostly no man's land. He was caught near the end by Will Rossetti in 4th, and it was the recovering Jaroslav Cherny who crucially I think scored ahead of Christian Zaruta. That will certainly help him to maintain the momentum in the points ahead of Christian in 6th. It's Blair McConaughey 7th from Matt Shepherd, James Murphy, and then Steve Arnell rounding out the top 10. 11th goes to Guy Crawford, who I think set the fastest lap of the race again throughout that race. So over a single lap, he's very quick. 12th for Michael Coomber, 13th for Richard Gallagher, and it's Mark Rodman and Rob Oldland, followed by Jim Earlham, Chris Skillicorn, who spun early on after contact on lap 1, then Tom McEwing, Alan Curtis, and Philip Clark rounds out the top 20. Well, what can you say about that? Because that was another frantic race. Brands Hatch delivers once more in terms of plenty of talking points and plenty of action, I guess. But the big talking point is big shift in the championship lead, and I'm pretty certain we've got a new points leader, and it's David Rowe. After all the misfortune he's had, finally some good luck coming his way.
Yeah, certainly after we take into account drop scores and things like that, I think Cherney will be looking to drop this event quite rapidly. But it's definitely going to be close between them at the front there. But yeah, great result. That double domination again has carried forward, like we mentioned last time. Just seems like if you're good at this track, it just carries on, and you can do both races. Starting from pole is such a good place to start from this track, more than most.
And it was an evening as well where, all right, let's say David Rowe aside, most of the championship contenders just seemed to get involved in incidents that either they didn't need to or just simply were innocent bystanders in. And that, I think, yes, they'll probably look to drop one of these scores heading for the end of the season, but they'll probably look back at it and think if any of them lose out to the championship, they might possibly look at Brands Hatch and think that's the turning point. That's the reason why the championship got away, because of events that happened tonight. Whereas week 1 or 2 might look back at it and think this was possibly the best thing that could have happened in terms of me gaining points, because of that I've now managed to pick up a couple more spots and hold on to the lead. So mixed, I'm sure, emotions and mixed feelings for the championship contenders, but I think the one who's going to have the biggest smile on his face is definitely going to be David Rowe. But the others seem to have a bit of catching up to do, as they're probably going to lick their wounds heading towards Donington.
Yeah, definitely. We haven't. I'd be interested to hear what it's like from the midfield there, and I'm gonna see whether Steve Arnell's actually available to chat to us. We don't often speak to Steve, but he had a good result out last time. But it looked like he was involved as much as anything in all those issues last time. So I don't know, Steve, have you got us in the commentary box?
Hello.
Hey, Steve. So, an interesting choice for our commentaries, but we wondered what it felt like in the middle of that race. It looked like there was all sorts going on at every single corner, and everyone wanting to be on the same piece of tarmac all at once.
Absolutely. It was just so tight. People around us all the time, always fighting, always defending. I don't think I put a good lap in until I made a little mistake and got a bit of clear air, and then after that I managed to sort of start putting some reasonable laps in.
Yeah. And so, I mean, once you were clear, like you say, you did manage. You were up to 4th in that second race at one point. I think maybe even the fabled 3rd place, but it seemed to be cursed a bit in the early part of that race, the 3rd place.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter how well I do. I always seem to. I mean, it's just inexperience on my part, the odd mistake here and there. But yeah, I'll get there.
Good stuff, and we'll look forward to seeing you out on track for real in the coming months, and see you next time.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, and maybe do we give David the honour of coming into the commentary box again?
I don't see why not. I was going to say, if you want to set off in your Martin Brundle impression and see who you can find. So yeah. I think it's only fair we speak to our double winner once again. So off you go.
It's getting boring, David. This, I mean, we don't speak to you for months and then suddenly you get loads of wins.
It's not boring, Cheesy. Come on. No, that was a good evening from a points point of view for sure.
You kind of did a Murphy, right? You just absolutely dominated. Didn't really look under threat, and everyone else behind you tripping up.
A little bit. I don't exactly know what happened in race 1 with Christian. I need to have a little look at the video. He kind of ran wide, and I think he turned into me. So I need to have a quick look at that. That was disappointing because we were having a good little race there actually. But obviously it worked to my advantage. Maybe
you can tell us what we didn't see what happened to Cherney early doors in race 1 as well. We cut back just as he was spinning to the inside down paddock.
Yeah, that was kind of unavoidable. Where he just clipped the gravel and then put himself into a half spin, and then Christian didn't have anywhere to go.
Okay, so there we go. So I'm guessing you're going to look forward to continuing this form. The mid-season break seems to have done you good.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, cheers. I mean, look, listen, Brands Hatch it's my local, and I've done a fair bit of time on the sim round here. So it's interesting how a few people have go better at different circuits actually. And so I think if I can continue the run, that would be great.
Well, Donington's next up, and you've run well at Donington before. It's another random track in that there's lots of action generally all into the chicanes, because there's not a lot of there's a lot of towing going on. So I'm guessing it's another random event, really.
We'll see. I think that's a little bit more flowing, and that's a little bit more difficult to brake at. So we'll see.
Thank you very much. Good luck in the second half of the season, and we will see you at Donington.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for everything that you guys are doing. Great job.
No problem.
Thank you.
Well, there you go, Scott.
Is there anyone else that you can see, or is that your ventures up the pit lane done for another evening?
Most people have left. I'm not. Everyone seems to be abandoning. So at this point, we'll we'll say that's
right,
it.
I've done it now. I'm going to go and see. I'm going to go and catch up on Bake Off. I think that's probably their attitude.
That's exactly what they're doing. Yeah, we are competing with Bake Off tonight. That's not good.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you are watching, of course, at least then live, then we appreciate it. If not, then if you're watching it back, then hopefully there was some nice cakes, whatever they were baking there, or whatever they bake on Bake Off. I'm not one that watches it, but I appreciate the cake, so that's fine. Anyway, and in lockdown probably too much. Anyway, moving on from that. Of course, that is another evening done for our caterhamracer.com racing, of course, but the season is not over just yet, at least in the virtual world, because we still have more racing coming up. Next time we go to, personally, one of my favourite circuits, not just in Britain, but in the world, Donington Park. Beautiful circuit to race on, and also a beautiful circuit to watch racing at. There usually tends to be plenty of action, whatever races there. I've never seen Donington produce a bad car race in many cases. But we see here that in a couple of weeks' time we do it once again as we usually do. So 420Rs will be out on the 6th of October at 8:30 British. I say British summertime because it doesn't switch over until I think the weekend of the Formula Ford Fest, if I'm correct, or at least the clocks don't change until then. But that's 6th of October, and then the week after that it'll be the lead up to the penultimate weekend of the season for Caterham Motorsport, because of course the calendar follows effectively the same timetable, if you like, in many cases as the real racing. And that will be the Academy cars that we saw tonight on the 13th of October, on the week that they will be heading up to Donington for the race meeting October 17th and 18th. But final thoughts, Chris, before we do head off. Again, lots of frantic racing, lots of frantic action. A night where most of the championship contenders didn't already have the evening that they wanted, but for one driver, probably the biggest smile on his face of all, I think is probably definitely going to be Mr. Rowe. I'm sure he has to Donington with plenty of confidence and the hope that he can keep this run of form going. Yeah,
Brands was a random evening for lots of drivers there. Again, some really good racing though, and great side-by-side action by all involved. And we did have a few incidents, which is never all that good to see, but it came off of doing things like going 4 wide into paddock or 4 wide into Surtees, which just doesn't happen. I enjoyed it tonight. I hope the viewers at home did, and I'm looking forward to Donington now.
And of course, just a reminder that the real-life Caterham Motorsport cars are in action this weekend at Brands Hatch. I have to obviously strictly say, of course, that if you are going as a spectator, please do adhere to all the safety measures that's going on with what's going on currently in not just this country, in the world. We know it's a frustrating time, we know it's difficult for everyone, but at the same time, the quicker we all adhere to everything, particularly the new measures that have been put in place, which thankfully, as far as I'm aware, don't affect racing going forwards, because it doesn't affect outdoor sports, but just please adhere to all the measures, and the quicker we manage to adhere to them and get through, the quicker we can come back out through the other side, and we'll be looking forward to a 2021, which hopefully will have minimal to no disruption. Fingers crossed. But before then, let's have a quick thanks once again to our sponsors of the season, because of course the caterhamracer.com Academy Championship is sponsored by Just Add Lightness, high performance LED lights for the Caterham 7. Do go and check them out at their website, www.justaddlightness.co.uk. if you have a Caterham 7, fancy some slightly brighter lights, if you want to make sure that you can be seen a bit better in the darkness. From myself, Scott Woodwis, and Chris Hutchison, and all of us here at caterhamracer.com, thank you again for watching either live or back on the recorded stream, and we will see you in more action once more when the 420Rs strut their stuff on Donington Park on the national circuit on the 6th of October. But until then, stay safe, look after yourselves, enjoy the racing if you're going to Brands Hatch, but keep your distance as much as you can, and we'll see you next time for more action in a couple of weeks' time. But until then, take care, and we'll see you then.
Bye bye.